Good morning everybody, and thank you once again for tuning into my YouTube video. Just a very quick one today to wish you, first of all, a very Merry Christmas for those that celebrate Christmas. My kids are like bottles of pop right now. It's, I don't know what, like it's the Friday before Christmas right now, so it's 3 or 4 days until Christmas. They're going crazy, and actually I love Christmas too. I really enjoy it. It's a really nice time of the year. We've got a very family orientated Christmas ahead of us, which is brilliant. I love that. And my work is done now for 2018. I'm completely done. I have maybe a little bit of writing to do for Fuji Love. I think I still have to do that. That's still on my to-do list. But other than that, work-wise, it's done. I finished off yesterday with a 2-day workshop in Bristol, which was very wet and windy, but it was very good, and it's complete. I'm happy. Everything's kind of in the can and edited up and all good to go. So what I'm going to do today, beyond just wishing you a very Merry Christmas, is just go through some of my favorite images from 2018. It's mostly weddings because, you know, weddings is what I do. And those of you that have never come across my channel before will probably need to understand that the way that I photograph pretty much everything, including weddings, is in a purely candid way. So it's all very documentary. None of it is staged. These are all real moments that happened at weddings and kind of real emotions and humor and fun and all that kind of stuff. So I went through my weddings this morning. I shot 35 weddings this year, I think. And an average wedding will yield somewhere between 400, 450 wedding pictures for the clients. So I decided not to just pick what perhaps maybe I would consider my best pictures as such. I just decided to pick randomly, in fact, a handful of images that are making me smile, making me laugh, and making me think actually that's going to give them very nice memories of their special day. So it's mostly weddings. There's a little bit of street photography in there, but I'm not going to dwell too much on that because that's what I've been talking about recently on the videos. A little bit of personal photography also, but again, these images I think you may have seen before if you've delved through the channel. So we're going to go to the computer. I'm just going to talk over the images, not too many, not too long, and yeah, I hope you enjoy the images, and thank you so much for sticking with me through 2018. The channel is going from strength to strength, which is great to see, and I have a very, very busy 2019 planned, both work-wise, workshops, talks, all of that stuff, but also for YouTube. So hang on to the channel and you shall see a lot more stuff in 2019. Right, let's get to the computer and see what we've got. Okay, let's see what we have first. Okay, so this is a lovely little image actually from Jack and Hayley's wedding not too long ago. I think at the end of September, something like that. And I love these types of images. I love the light, of course, and the church. And we're blessed in the UK to have some beautiful wedding venues. And what I'm always looking out for, I guess, for bridesmaids and little page boys and all of the little kids that run around the wedding is the innocence and the fact that actually they don't really quite understand the enormity of what's happening today in this special wedding event. But they just get on with being kids, and kids being kids is a wonderful thing to see and photograph. And in this case, I'm actually right at the back of the church. The vicar had asked us to stay at the back of the church, which is fine. That happens a lot, and that's perfectly normal. So I'm kind of very lucky, in fact, that I'm kind of crouched down, waiting for everything to happen. I think they're away signing the register at this point, and I'm just kind of hanging back and watching and waiting. And this little girl had been sat down for quite a while with her back to me, and I just kind of wanted and hoped that she would stand up at some point, look into that lovely pool of light, and you get that kind of look at her mum, Mum, what happens next? When do we get to throw the confetti? When do we get to eat and run around and just be kids? I want to get out of this dress. All of that good stuff. Yeah, lovely little picture. Now, as I said, at least I think I said, I've just thrown these together randomly. They're not in any order whatsoever, apart from the fact that I've kept the wedding ones together, and the ones at the end will be more of the kind of personal street photography, that kind of stuff. So I have no idea, in fact, which image is coming next as I record all of these voiceovers. But this is one from, again, September, I think, or it may have been just before August, end of July. This is from a lovely, really lovely marquee wedding, and obviously this is from bridal prep part of the day. And again, it's about the light, it's the light, and of course the happiness of mum's kind of cracking up, and the bridesmaids are helping with the dress and all of that stuff. but it's really the light that's kind of helping me with this image. And you can get the idea from my position that I've moved myself into the position to not only try and get the best of the moment, but also use the light as best as I possibly can. The light is coming from a window to my left, as you can tell. It's pretty obvious, but it's a lovely moment, you know, real kind of engaging before the storm of the wedding, before everything gets too kind of hectic. It's just that, you know, really relaxing, cracking up, having a really fun time, all of the girls together. And you know, it's actually really difficult as a guy photographing bridal prep, trying to be as discreet as possible, and it's impossible at this point of the day to not obviously be there. But it's something that I try and at least do my best to, you know, to smile and laugh along with them, and try not to be this great big elephant in the room, you know, this hairy bloke with his couple of cameras, and just let them get on with being and doing what they want to do, which is having lots of fun. Okay, what's next? We have this lovely, actually really beautiful picture, I think, from St. John's College in Cambridge University, and this is the chapel, obviously. This is one of the first images I took with the GFX 50R. It says 50S in the EXIF data down in the bottom right hand side, because when we were taking these images and processing them for Tokyo, there was no GFX 50R converter available, so we had to basically hack the EXIF data to make it look like a 50S so we could process them a little bit. So it is actually a 50R image, and it's a really nice image. I love it. It's a very, even though this chapel is very big and very grand, there was only a handful of people at this wedding, maybe 15, 20 people, something like that. And it was lovely, really nice, lovely sunny day. This was the day before I went on holiday, actually. I remember it well. And I was kind of under a little bit of pressure to get some images using the 50R before I went on holiday, because they needed them for Tokyo and the kind of press and all that kind of stuff. So I used it for a handful of images during the ceremony and a handful of images during the reception, but because it was a prototype camera at the time, obviously I didn't use it too much during a live wedding. But this is a really nice picture. It kind of gives some kind of idea of the venue, I suppose, and it also gives some idea to a certain extent of the quality of that GFX 50R. I think, yeah, nice. I like that picture. Okay, in this picture we have a little bit of a split kind of framing going on, and it's a tough image to get actually, because this particular wedding the church was full, and so they had a little marquee outside with some of the other guests. And what I was interested in and what I was trying to capture during this was the anxious nature of the vicar outside as well, because actually, even though vicars do, you know, services every weekend and weddings and funerals and all of that kind of stuff, it's still quite a thing for them to stand up in front of people, and especially on people's wedding day, and, you know, get their words right and get everything that they need to get their minds and thoughts put together before the ceremony. And I often feel that myself included, I kind of ignore this player in the party, if you like, the vicar. Or the registrars. They're very important. They're the people that are saying the vows, or giving the vows out to the clients to say. So it's something I try and do more of, and that's to include them within context of the day, and have them not just at the end of the altar or the end of the aisle saying the prayers, etc., but have them within the kind of the remit of the day and the story of the day, and telling the story as I see it as a photographer wandering around and seeing the moments unfold. Those kind of immediate moments before the ceremony that the bride and groom won't see. They just won't see this kind of stuff in real life. Okay, so this is from Sophie and Daniel's wedding, and this is the one that I actually shot that very fast motion photo film for, which I'll link above so you can see that if you haven't seen it before. A bit of a crazy day, but absolutely wonderful wedding. And this is at the end of the aisle, bride and groom coming down. Bride sees a friend, a guest. One thing I have to say is all of these images have been cropped 16:9, so they work better on the video. Typically I'll shoot at 3:2, so there's a little bit more height and width to all of the images in real life. But you get the idea of this. And what I love about these types of images, you know, I've shot them coming up the aisle, and as they get up the aisle, they're about to turn left outside to go out to the church. So I kind of go down on my haunches at that point, so I can try and get some context of the people behind them, and she's a very excitable bride. She was beautiful, and it was a really fun day, very fun wedding. And I love the fact that she's just seen one of her best friends, and it's kind of like, oh my God, look, there you are, great to see you. And then they go off and have a very amazing day indeed. And this is still Sophie and Daniel right outside the church. They disappear to the left, as I said, or their left as they exited the church. Everybody else exited from a different door and went off to prepare to throw some confetti and all of that good stuff. So they had a little moment by themselves around the back of the church. And as I was coming out, I spotted them just chatting and doing their thing as they kind of congratulate each other and knowing that they could spend the rest of their lives together. And as I kind of moved across towards them to try and get some shots, they have this lovely, and it's such a nice picture because it's really them. It's she was so into him and he's so into her, and I love the fact that there's no false emotion here. This is real, absolutely. They love each other to bits, and they are proving that to each other as well as everybody else. And I think that's great to see. Sometimes at weddings you see, especially in the UK, we're very reserved here in the UK. So people are a little bit kind of hold back, and they kind of say, "Oh yes, well done," and peck each other on the cheek, kind of thing. But not these guys. They were really going for it, and I think that's amazing to see. Love it, absolutely love it. And here they are again, moments later, running up the aisle of confetti that I mentioned that people have gone off to prepare. Look at the smiles, look at the happiness. Actually, it was a very, I would probably say a very, very expensive wedding in terms of everything that they planned and prepared. And it was just one of those days that everything was amazing. The weather was amazing. Everybody was on good form. Lots of people, amazing entertainment in the evening, brilliant speeches. It was just one of those weddings, where you just come back. When you're driving back from a wedding like that, you have a kind of bit of a smile on your face and you think, yeah, that was good. Okay, what's coming up next? All right, so we have this. This is what I class as a kind of detail shot in context, I suppose. This is from a London wedding earlier in the year, and it's I'm always looking out for these kind of details. I'm never going to stage anything. I'm never, even if I'm taking pictures of things like the table decorations and all of that stuff, which is important to get. I don't move them. I don't stage them. I don't kind of put any extra lights on them or anything. But often when I see things like the order of service and the drink on the floor, that kind of thing, and the feet of some of the guests, to me I find that interesting. I find that an image that not only shows off the order of service, but it also shows off a little bit of the context of who's there, the fact that it's a wedding, the fact that the champagne is there and everything. So it's a very simple snapshot to get, but it's something I'd rather take a picture like this personally. I know it's not to everybody's taste, then pick that order of service up and take it upstairs and lay it out nicely on a table or something, because by the time I'm doing that, I'm missing all kinds of other shots that are going on during the drinks reception. So this is the kind of thing that I like to shoot in terms of details. I love this kind of stuff. Okay, so we're stepping back a little bit here and going much wider for this type of image. And what I really like about this image is that it gets the venue in. This is a family home, and not only does it get the venue in, but it gets a lot of the characters, and it includes the weather, it includes the home, it includes the clothes they're wearing. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but there's not one particular scene in this image that is necessarily the focal point. The focal point probably actually is the house, but by going wider and trying to get as much of that in context as possible and frame it nicely, I can get a good overall sense of the wedding, I think, with pictures like this. I like this kind of stuff. Okay, what's up next? Okay, this is just a fun little image, I guess. Little bridesmaid. Actually, this was a wedding in Yorkshire, and at this time that I was taking this picture, pretty much everybody was, including the bride and groom, were having a jolly old great game of cricket on the lawn, and very good they were at it too. Alright, so this is also a GFX 50R image, and I took this with a 45mm f2.8, and I don't really shoot much with the GFX at weddings generally. I don't even have my GFX 50R as we speak. It's still on order. But when I was testing it, I wanted to use it as much as possible as I was using my standard X Pro 2 XT2 at the time, XT3 as it came along. So this is actually on the dance floor. I've actually used a flash on this, I think, looking at it. And it's nice, fun image, but being able to get in on the dance floor with a medium format camera to get those kind of really very, very detailed shots. It's probably a little bit overkill to use something like that in that environment, but it worked well, and it's a nice picture. I really like that picture, actually. I don't know whether this is something that happens in other countries, but in the UK we have this thing called the singing waiters, and what happens is typically you'll have a waiter that's serving during the meal, and actually he's not a real waiter at all, he's just dressed as a waiter, and he'll drop some cutlery or something or start swearing and then burst into song. It's really fun to see, and this year I've had a load of those. I think I've had like 5 or 6 weddings where they've had singing waiters. They're great, it's really good. You can get some really good kind of candid out of it. A lot of fun. Singing waiters, love them. Okay, back onto the dance floor, and this is another marquee wedding by the looks of it. And what I'm doing here, this is immediately after the first dance, you know, when the friends and family all jump onto the dance floor and start dancing away too. But I always try and get the band as much as possible within context of the dancing at the same time, if it's possible. I'll usually take a standard kind of front-on shot of the band as they're doing their thing also. But in this case, I really love the light that's very harsh spotlight up in the corner there. And I'm trying to include the guitarist and the lead singer, as well as the bride and groom as they finish off their first dance. I really like this picture, actually, really nice, works really well in colour. Alright, so right at the beginning of the day, and you know, you've obviously guessed so far, I would imagine, I'm not showing you the typical kind of bride and groom walking up the aisle, standard shots that happen at every wedding, I guess. I'm looking for ones that are probably making me smile a little bit more, on the inside at least. So pictures like this, you know, this is right early in the morning, you know, the cake has just been delivered, the box is still there, they're still doing the vacuum cleaning, everybody's still kind of running around, the people organising the wedding is still very, very busy. But shots like this are still part of the story, you know, this is what lays the groundworks, I guess. And you know, I often say that a story, whether it's photographically or whether it's written, you know, it has a start, a middle and an end, and pictures like this help form that and help collate that into a story pictorially. So this is right at the very beginning of the day. So we're back at bridal prep for this image, and a very simple picture, but actually one of my favourites from the year, I think. I love the light, I love the concentration, I love the fact that the bridesmaid has decided she needs to get in under the veil to help with those top buttons. Really nice kind of portrait of the two friends right before the wedding. Beautiful. There's a whole series of images around this, actually, that culminated in this particular moment, and this is probably my favourite one from that whole wedding. In fact, I really like this. I love the tones of it also. Nice picture. Okay, we move back to April or May, I think, for this one. This was a really lovely wedding again, beautiful couple, very, very friendly wedding in Leicester, and they had a really happy ceremony. Everybody was very happy, and what I like to do when I'm shooting the vows and the ring exchange and beyond the normal stuff is kind of shoot through them and look for the people in the congregation, especially the bridesmaids, the mums, the dads, all that kind of stuff. And you know, occasionally it doesn't always work, but occasionally you get that fleeting glance, that look of, yeah, you know what, I'm really pleased for you guys. I'm really, really pleased. Nice, pretty picture. I like this type of picture too. Now, another, I think, really beautiful picture, and one that often, pictures like this are often missed because, you know, as the photographer, and I'm including myself in this, I'm not kind of excluding myself, I miss these types of things usually because I'm too concentrated on the big event and, you know, where are the bride and groom, where are the mums and dads, what's going on, and often these kinds of things go unnoticed, and it's that little glance back by the bridesmaid that, you know, you have the little boy, the page boys encouraging the other little bridesmaids and saying, you know, it's going to be all right, it's going to be all right. But then the bridesmaid turns back, she's looking for her mum presumably, or her dad, and she has that adorable little face that's just saying, oh, I don't know, I've been looking forward to this for so long, and now I'm a little bit nervous, I'm not really sure what to do. I love it, I love these types of pictures. And you know, when that little girl grows up to be a bride of her own at some point, I would imagine, these are the memories that will then definitely make her smile. Alright, so we're back to Leicester actually for that wedding that we were just looking at, and this is Owen he's just given his bride the first kiss, and he follows that up with this great big bear hug, this kind of, loving, pretty much you're mine forever and I'm yours forever, and I'm so happy. And you could just see it on their face. She's burying her head into his shoulder. I love it. I love all that kind of stuff. I've taken one step to the right here because at this point the registrar, if I remember rightly, had kind of moved out of the way and just kind of looked at me as if to say, go there, step in my place, which is great. So one step to the right, frame it nicely, nice and wide to include the other guests, and yeah, beautiful picture. Okay, moving back to a colour picture outside. This is like the chaos of the immediate after the wedding that I really love to kind of get in close and shoot all this stuff. Now, you'll notice that, they're all just getting on with their own thing. The little girl's got her tongue out, the little boy's eating a bread roll, everybody's laughing, smiling. This is immediately before, I think immediately before the bride and groom come out of the church. So they're kind of hanging back, waiting for everybody to come out. And at that point, it's not a case of just putting the cameras down and waiting for them to come out to get that confetti shot. It's time to wander, look, capture, get all of that other stuff, the clutter, the immediate aftermath of the wedding. And I love these types of pictures that have no real there's no real kind of compositional framing to them, but it's all about the people and all about the exact moment in time. Now here we have a real kind of tender moment, I suppose, and those of you that know me know that I'm a sucker for tender moments, especially if there's grandparents or something like that involved. So you can see the bride in the foreground. This is the sister of the bride, I think, the bridesmaid, who's just comforting her grandmother. Just that very lovely little touch to the cheek, and the eye contact is what makes the picture for me here. The fact that they're gazing into each other's eyes. Very emotional lady, actually, and it was beautiful thing to see. All right, a little bit of a fun shot here. I always, whenever I see people with those super reflective sunglasses, I'm always looking out for that moment when the bride is staring into the glasses and you get the reflection. Dead simple to do, just a bit of fun more than anything, but just a little bit of an interesting twist on those glasses, I guess. Now, this is a nice photo also because it's, remember I just mentioned that the grandmother with the bridesmaid and the finger on the face, etc. This is the grandfather, and he just very stoically stood back and let everything happen in front of him. And he just waited his turn very, very patiently, very politely. He was a little bit doddery on his feet, he's got his cane there, until it was his turn that he could then congratulate his daughter by himself without the chaos of everything else. And this is the first picture in a sequence actually where they then embraced and they had a little bit of a cuddle, etc. But this is the picture that I like the most out of that, because he was this very, very stoic character and very, very kind of firmly deciding to wait his turn, and it was very nice to see, very nice. Okay, so another little fun image more than anything. I've had this thing this year where I've been trying to capture, it's like a theme almost, little babies, kids in almost like in isolation. This kind of idea of them finding themselves like fish out of water at this wedding, and suddenly their entire life is, I'm dressed up, I've got a bow tie on, I'm being held up aloft and stuck in the faces of people I don't recognize, and I don't like this. I'm a baby, I should be at home, I should be eating and playing and having fun and sleeping. What's going on? And so I've been trying to capture that kind of element of isolation, I suppose, that you get with these little kids. And this is another one of those. It's the same wedding, in fact. This is a little girl with beautiful, beautiful hair, a lovely dress, and she was just kind of stood by herself thinking, yeah, okay, I've got my nice little dress on, and I've got all my friends and family around me, but what's going on? Why is everybody here? Why are they all dressed up? I don't really quite understand, but she had some fun later on. Okay, now this is a kind of peculiar picture, I suppose, and it's one of those, I don't know, it's very off the cuff, Martin Parr-esque type image, I guess, and not that I'm comparing myself to him, of course, but there's no faces in this. This is all about the environment, the legs, the clothes, the shoes, the fact that some have got flip-flops on, some, the jackets come off the shoulder, all of that stuff. It's the M&S carrier bag, it's the location, the double yellow lines, the water on the floor to indicate that it had been raining very heavily. So more of a kind of off-the-cuff type image, really, rather than a traditional type wedding image. But I do like to include these types of things also. It's just makes the viewer just think a little bit, and actually the bride and groom also will think, oh yeah, actually, you know what, they made an effort, and they came, and they had fun and enjoyed themselves. Now this is obviously a far more traditional image, bride and groom walking up the aisle, but I liked it. When I was flipping through the images earlier, this is one that stood out as a kind of bride and groom walking down the aisle recessional, as it's called. I like it because they're very happy. They're clutching each other's hands very tightly, which is a really nice thing to see. And there's smiles, there's recognition going on. You get an idea of the context, you get an idea of the colours, you get an idea of the environment, the big flowers, all of that stuff. There's only one mobile phone being poked in the air, but you know what, that thing about mobile phones, it's the world we live in, and in 30, 40 years time, when people look back at these pictures and they see all those people with mobile phones, that will be history making, storytelling. You'd be like, oh my word, look at what are those big things they've got in their hands in those days. So it's not, I never really complained about that stuff, but it's a really traditional, nice, smiley, happy, typical wedding picture. Okay, this is back to Jack and Hayley's wedding, and I've included this because I like this picture a lot, because what I try and do with my wedding clients is give them images from a guest side point of view. It's not always possible, especially during things like the confetti run, but you can see here what I'm doing here is I'm standing with the guests. I'm actually standing just inside the clutter of guests, and really trying to give them this kind of all-encompassing, full frame, big image, but from a guest point of view, rather than from what the photographer saw, from what the guests saw. Now, we talk a lot about, I talk a lot, I should say, about shooting through things, and I know all wedding photographers do this. It's a really good way of kind of including foreground interest and background interest, but connecting the dots. So in this case, this is the bridal car coming to collect the bride and groom. In fact, this is after the wedding, not before the wedding. But I'm using the two chaps here with their suits on as the frame, if you like. So I'm shooting through them. The guy on the left is actually, if I remember rightly, was looking at me and thinking that I was taking a picture of them. But you can see by the perspective, the angle, everything else about it, that actually I was just using them as a decoy, if you like, to get a shot of that car coming up the path towards the church. Okay. So this is just makes you laugh. You have to laugh at this, don't you? Little baby in his nappy, big field, and I'm going to go and find a puddle, and I'm going to do my best Peppa Pig impression. Muddy puddles, jumping up and down. At this point, actually, again, this is cropped, so the mum who stood there on the right-hand side, she didn't actually notice at first that the little baby was doing this, and immediately kind of dragged her out and had to go and change her socks and her shoes. This is a nice image too. If you look at the EXIF data there, it's shot at 1/32,000th of a second. So I've tried to, on these very bright sunny days, I'll use the electronic shutter to try and shoot wide open to still give a sense of depth of field. So this is the 23mm f1.4 at 1.4 on a bright sunny day. I like the veil and the wind and the breeze and the fact that there is that lovely interaction in the middle. Relatively standard type image, but it's still one of those. These are the kinds of images. These are the bread and butter images. These are the images that, when weddings don't have this type of emotion in them, it makes me a little bit sad. And that doesn't happen very often. But I love it when people are very open about their emotions and congratulate each other, and really kind of those big smiles on the guy's face there, etc. I like that kind of stuff. More kids being kids. Now, actually, when this picture was taken, this was not long ago also, and I have a series of pictures of this thing happening, but this is the one I included for the bride and groom, because I like the beer bottle in the hand from the guy in the front, because that gives us a sense of place, that gives us a sense of time, and it gives us a sense of environment. And obviously the little girl is in her element there. This is the little girl from that very first frame, the one who was sat in the church with that beautiful light falling on her face. Okay, so now this is during the speeches, and when the speeches go ahead and they do the toast and they get up and say, no, please raise your glasses to the bride and groom, it's very easy to not include the guests and what they're doing. It's very easy to just concentrate on the toast giver or the speech maker or the receiver of the speech, but I'll often just twist around very quickly and just try and get these wider images and see what's going on. It doesn't always work because, for example, if the guy pouring the glass of wine at the front that had stood up, I'd be in a tricky situation. I'd have to change my my position quite substantially to get anything reasonable. But I like this. It's nice and deep. There's a lot of stuff going on, and you can, well, the bride and groom would look at that and see lots of their friends and think, why is he doing that? Why has he got that smile on his face? Oh, look at those two, or those two are together now. They had, whatever. There's a lot of information in that frame, a lot of layers, a lot of depth, a lot of personality, I suppose. Okay, so another fun shot, and it doesn't need explaining, does it? You've got the two girls taking a selfie. You've got the bride having her portrait taken with a friend or a sister or something. It just comes together. You're just creating the story by taking pictures of the stuff that's happening. It's so simple, but by just opening your eyes a little bit more and seeing a little bit more of the wider picture, rather than just taking a portrait of the picture that's being taken, just add in all of the other elements, and you get those images, or at least I get those images that I really like to create on a wedding day. So back to another more traditional type image, I suppose. Straight down the aisle, first kiss, a little bit of a bend in the bride's back. It's very, very perfect almost in that respect. It's nice. It's just nice, isn't it? It's just a nice picture. It's beautiful. It works really well in black and white, and I really like that picture. So I talked earlier very briefly about this idea of a start and a middle and an end to a story, and this is right at the end of my shooting time. I finished, I pretty much packed up. This is the dancing is kicking off and I'm leaving. I've done the first dance, etc. But what I will never do when I leave is put all my cameras in the bag. I'll always still have one on me even until I walk to the car, because sometimes opportunities present themselves when you think that you're done. Just turning around, I see the frames on the wall. It's a nice stately country home, and this kind of framing through the doorway of the people doing their dancing. Had I put my cameras all away, I would never have got that picture. And it's not going to win any awards, but it's a nice picture that kind of ends the story. Remember that idea of a start and a middle and an end. That's a nice frame at the end to kind of complete my coverage. I genuinely have no idea what's going on here at all. I obviously remember taking the picture, but I suspect there was alcohol involved. All right, that's the end of the wedding stuff, I think. We've just got a few kind of streety type shots and personal shots. This is X70. The reason I've included this is I actually really like this picture. I'm not a big fan of flying, so I kind of seeing this kind of view makes you understand the sheer beauty of what we have in our world above us, and the power of these planes and the amazing technology that we have in our lives also. X70 just in my jacket pocket, when I'm traveling, that's it. Quick snapshot out the window. And now we are in Tokyo at the Shibuya crossing, and I'm not going to dwell on these images too much because I've talked a lot about them recently on this channel. I'll link to the video, the Tokyo vlog above, so you can check that out if you want. But this is the kind of image that I love to make. This is zone focus. The camera is down at my chest level, maybe even lower than that. Very gentle man, stood by the crossing, just waiting his turn to cross. And I love this type of portrait, candid street portrait. And then on the flip side, later on at night, I've had to use the little X100F flash to get this shot. Again, it's a very, very standard scene in Tokyo. People with their masks crossing the road. But just by throwing a bit of light on it, using a slow shutter speed, 1/15th of a second, as you can see there, just getting something a little bit more interesting out of a pretty standard viewpoint, I suppose. Now, this year I've done quite a bit of day in the life stuff also, but I typically don't share many of the images because they're very personal images, obviously. But this client I've been shooting now for 4 or 5 years, and in fact I've photographed the births of both of their babies, both of the people you see in these frames coming up. And I'll link to one of those stories above also. Now, again, it's a very, very simple picture, but it's a very, very tender picture. This is a GFX 50S image. And I love it. This is the kind of picture that when you grow up and you see those and you're maybe 50, 60, 70, 80 years old yourself, these are the pictures you're going to really, really reminisce over, I think. And the everyday struggles of family life. This picture always makes me smile. Little baby there is having some medicine. He's been a little bit poorly. Little girl at that opportunity, she sees mum's hands are full. She's going to plow straight into the bowl of porridge and just, get a big spoon and not bother about cutlery or anything. I'm just going to go straight into the pan. Dad's busy washing up in the background. It's just such a typical family picture that it makes me really kind of howl with laughter at that picture in terms of how realistic it is. And the final one I think I selected from the day in the life stuff is this picture. How can you not just smile at this? How can you not smile at this little girl with I'm wearing my goggles in the bath, baby, and mum obviously still very tender age for the little baby, and mum's in there with him to kind of help him bathe. Love it. A really, really beautiful family picture. Really beautiful. I love this kind of stuff. Okay, and on to a few final snaps, I think, from my own personal photo library from the year. And I've taken maybe 5,000 or so images this year of my own family, a lot of which I've already talked about on the channel, so I won't go into it in too much detail. But, we spend quite a bit of time in the summer in Spain, and they love the swimming pool, and I love trying to capture my kids at the moment while they are, they're growing up very, very quickly. Rosa now is 11 and Albie is 7, believe it or not, in the pool and just messing about. This is Brian, my father-in-law, and, very important member of our family. Such a wonderful man, such a beautiful person, and, it's actually surprised me when I went through the images, how few images we have of, as a family, how we have of our own parents, myself and my wife, our parents. So that's something for 2019 for me to definitely change and get more of that stuff in. This is Albie, obviously. All of these, by the way, are shot on the GFX 50R, not the S. It says S in there in the metadata, but that's, as I explained earlier, it's because we didn't have a converter, a raw converter at the time for the 50R as we were testing it. So Albie in his little goggles, pretty much all he wears as soon as he gets to Spain, puts those goggles on. We spend 4 weeks or so in Spain, and just before we get on the plane, he takes them back off again. Love that little picture. And here they are, the kids in the pool. There's the goggles again, undisturbed. And, my kids, of course, I show the pictures that I love, and I show the pictures that give me a sense of happiness. But my kids also are just like everybody else's kids. They argue and they bicker and they fight, and they these pictures are the ones that we will always remember, and the happy days, of course. But there are times, and I have pictures of them being pretty brutal to each other as well. But by and large, they're good kids, and I love them when they're together and love them when they're happy. Now, in this image, this is my wife's driving us through the streets somewhere in Spain. 50R again, just testing it more than anything. 1/500th of a second if you look, in a moving car. Rosa's fallen asleep at the back, too much time in the swimming pool, I suppose, and just kind of raised it, snapped it through the mirror. Nothing particularly arty about it, but it's another one of those pictures that as a family we'll look back at. And I always print these things out, so at the end of every year I have a selection of images for us to look at in a photo book. I think that's super important, and I've talked about that before. And here is Albie. This is it. I've shown these types of pictures before also. These aren't the particularly pleasant ones, but they're memories, right? And memories is what it's all about. And I think that as soon as we forget the fact that we are capturing memories, and we're not necessarily always, and I say not necessarily always in very big capital letters, having to make perfect, technically perfect images. It's about the memories. Alright, so there we have it, just a handful of images, just me talking over them, explaining why they make me smile as the photographer, which ultimately I guess is what photography is all about, right? That's it. Have a very great Christmas if you're watching this before Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, all of that good stuff, and I shall see you in 2019. Take care.